He also said that every generation needs a revolution, Jimmy. The American dream is just that. Just a dream. War is a continuation of politics, only by other means. Politics is a continuation of economics by other means. This is our bank. This is our war. And this is our plan of attack.
Banks have become an essential threat to our democracy. So consider this justice.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the internet. Please help support this station so this battle can continue forward. Revolution Radio! The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Aloha, everyone, and welcome to Stargate to the Cosmos. I'm your host, Janet Care Lessin, with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Alex Lessin and Kevin Estrella. And our producer is Thomas Becker, and our guest today is Solaris BlueRaven. And Solaris is a published author, producer, writer, editor, and public speaker with a professional background in covert technology, surveillance, investigative research, healing modalities, and technology. She is known for her experience as a test pilot for synthetic telepathy black projects, of which she discloses in her new book series, Eye of the Remote. She is a world-renowned psychic, clairvoyant, remote viewer, and systems busters for MK Ultra-related programs. She's a second-degree black belt, has an extensive background in advanced sciences and mystical alchemy, and she investigates supernatural and technological anomalies. And she has a website, Night Shadow Anomaly Detectives. She's a host of 2 radio shows, Ravenstar's Witching Hour, Saturdays at 12 midnight on Revolution Radio, Studio A, and Hyperspace on KCOR Digital Radio Network, each Friday at 12 midnight. So she's got the 12 midnight hour. Before we bring her on, I'd like to bring on Dr. Sasha and our other co-host, Kevin Estrella. Sasha, are you there?
Yes, looking forward to the show today.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. We're going to learn a lot. There's a lot of things here I don't know, Solaris, so we'll have you teach us. And Kevin, coming in from Canada.
Aloha.
How you doing?
Aloha. It's been a while.
Aloha. Yeah. Yeah, we're sorry, listeners. Dr. Liss and I went to the mainland for the UFO Congress, and we caught this horrible flu. And boy, we were down and out. Woo! And you had it too, huh, Kevin?
I did, and I'm still recovering from it too.
Me
like 2
too.
weeks. Yeah, it just lingers. It just makes you exhausted.
Yeah, it's like I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and be able to go into town and do this and do that, and it's like, oh no, I'm just going to go back to bed.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we'll get better soon. So, I'm going to bring on Solaris. We're very excited to have you tonight. We've heard a lot of good things about you, and I've been wanting to talk to you for ages. We finally got you on the schedule. Good evening. How are you doing? Welcome to the show.
Well. Hi, thank you. It's wonderful to be on board with you all tonight. And yeah, it's been I've always wanted to connect with you guys, so it's great. So thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, this is exciting.
Yeah.
So I think what we'll do is we'll have you kind of do a download. We have a different audience than you do. Even though you're on Revolution Radio, we have a different audience. You can tell us a little bit about your work, and we'll go for about 15, 20 minutes, maybe up to half an hour. if we have something we want to interject, we'll try to raise our hand. I know you can't see it, but we'll try to indicate, hey, we'd like to say something. But then we'll go into a Q&A because there's a lot to cover here. So take it away, Solaris.
Okay. Well, I don't know if you want me to start talking about the covert technology, but what I'll do is give you a benchmark insofar as where I've been initially before I was inducted in 2004. So prior to 2004, I was working on DNA activation and healing, master teacher healer, martial arts instructor, writing books, and doing all kinds of things that are basically enlightenment oriented. Also was a map maker working in surveillance and not surveillance, excuse me, surveying. I got into surveillance later on, but the surveying is what I was doing prior to 2004. So I had a normal life doing the work that probably you all are kind of involved in to some degree, working with the cosmic design and things that are outside the illusion of man. And in 2004, I have to back this up because I want you guys to get an understanding insofar as how I got pulled into the covert program. I sent a book to a high-profile musician in a Canadian rock band, and this person I've had correspondence with in the past, by the way, so it's not like he was a stranger to me. And within a week, I had everything surveilled in my house, right down to computers and cell phones. And at that time, I had plants in the area, and eventually they were key logging, and then they interconnected me onto a live feed real-time communication system with a fellow named Michael J. Mosbach, who was literally Neil Peart's right-hand man for the band Rush. And these were the people who indoctrinated me into the program, who inducted me into the program, and who actually ran the program on me and pulled me into a very interesting sci-spy technology, which is also connected to artificial intelligence interface and a lot of other things that dealt with pattern recognition, numbers, codes, entrainment programming, and a lot of other things. So at that point in the continuum, when I was pulled in 2004, my whole life was pretty much disrupted. It was changed within 4 months' time. My marriage was gone. I was on Maui, to be honest with you guys, and they were running rogue with, the Michael basically showed up about a year later, and the game went on and on and on and on until I testified in 2006 against them because nothing was getting resolved, and I was being tortured pretty much after a while. It was just becoming abusive. So I testified, and of course the judge ignored it, and he was also paid off. So literally that was ignored in 2006 when I testified. And at that point, I started getting involved in writing about the whole experience, putting it in documentation because I realized that everything was swept under the carpet, and that these guys were literally just covering their tracks and basically doing all kinds of damage control, character assassination on me, on the internet, and everything else. So I had no choice but to put the book, I, the Remote Black Operations in Areas Beyond 52, out, which I did. And that covers everything. I mean, if you look in the book itself, it really covers everything you can possibly imagine, from black satellite technology to the induction to the people. I mean, it just goes on and on. I have a sequel called Program by Deception, I, the Remote Series 2, which is actually more of a timeline insofar as the esoteric side to what's happening here, insofar as why they're doing what they're doing with the technology and why they're seeking out star people, celestial types, people who have accentuated gifts like we do. They love beings like us, and unfortunately they're encapsulating our entire identity. And at that point, I kept those books going on, and then I have my 1 Million Miles Till Midnight, which is literally a spin-off of the technology itself that I was interfaced with. And that is actually kind of like the final product in a sense that that's really what's happening behind the scenes. It's about morphing worlds, ascended machine technology, how people and mankind basically gets indoctrinated into more than transhumanism. So it really goes on to the level of that machine interface, and then it goes way beyond the spectrum of mankind and the Earth. So that's, I hope this isn't like a crash course, but it kind of is.
Well,
but I want to give you a rundown.
It is. So I think we're going to have to slow it down a little bit.
That's all right. I go fast forward. I have a tendency to do that due to some of the programs I had indoctrinated into me. That's okay. Let me know where you want to start again.
We're in kindergarten. We're in kindergarten. Okay. And I think this is very important because we've approached the same thing from a lot of different perspectives. And I think we're converging on the same thing. But you have a piece of the puzzle that we lack. And I think that's why the universe threw us together. I know Kevin interviews a whole bunch of people up there in Canada, and so we're going to have a lot of questions, and we're probably going to have you back for more than one show to get this, how to integrate all this stuff, like a big jigsaw puzzle.
Oh,
but okay, yeah, Sasha, did you have a question?
Oh yeah, let's slow down a little bit, and
believe me, you can listen to the replay now.
Okay. So what I sort of get is that you are being against your will forced into my labs type programs, and they're harassing you, and you somehow have been able to maintain your integrity anyhow. Am I tracking you at all?
Well, that's semi correct, but I don't consider myself a military abductee, although it does correlate. And the technology that they initially pulled me into, I think, was experimental and exotic. And pretty much I was a test pilot for the synthetic telepathy live feed real time. I mean, they really handled me with kid gloves, and that was with the initiators. So I would say that I initially was being tested and interfaced and literally used as a spy to some degree through their programs. And then later on, after nothing was getting resolved and I felt like I was being swept away and overrode by the technology interface, I had to I had to communicate, and I felt like I was being more abused than anything else. And at that point, it became abusive and I had to testify. Go ahead.
Can you explain to us what this synthetic telepathy live feed technology,
okay.
Live feed technology, how can they interface that with the human being?
Easy.
How does that work?
Okay, well, let me explain. Well, you all know that you're all very psychic, and I know that all of you are. So you have a bioelectric field, and you have a natural multidimensional system. You have a natural psychic ability. They can literally remotely tag you by black satellite technologies or other various forms, depending on if they're doing a surveillance around you or surveilling you. So literally, it's remote access. That's what we call remote brain hacking. So they can literally use a signal to interconnect onto you and match and almost heterodyne your frequency onto their communication system, and then overlay it and create a feedback communication system, which basically is synthetic telepathy live feed with a real-time handler. So basically, they're enhancing your psychic abilities. They're mapping it. They're interfacing it onto technology, and they're playing it back to you. So then you have a link, and that link is established and interconnected with a communication system. Usually they'll have to have an operator, controller, or programmer involved. Live feed real-time handler is there to make sure that you are complying with what they want and interfacing you and programming you, because when they start doing this to you, you actually, your eyes get mapped, your body gets mapped, your bioelectric field gets mapped. When you look around and you start to see things, they will map everything for you so you cannot think for yourself. Every time you try to communicate a sentence, they'll overlay it or they'll interfere or try to communicate a combat communication. So you had to box it out of your system. You have to box it out of your brain. It's really intrusive. With the live handler real time, it wasn't as bad, but as soon as they start interfacing and they start playing the chess game, it is horrific. And this is one of the things that I learned to talk.
How do you know it's happening to you? Can they do this to
because
somebody
you start
that
hearing
doesn't even know it's happening?
If you'll know immediately, because the body goes into a kind of a shock. My initial system went into almost a trauma because of the interconnection program, they call it, an interconnection. So you literally, your vitals start to drop. You basically, it's almost disorienting to a point where you get overloaded with technology and a transmission and a signal, and then you start hearing communication in your head. Okay, so those of you who think, I'm hearing voices, so this is synthetic telepathy. This is not hearing a voice, and I've never heard voices my entire life until they plugged me into the communication system live feed real time. So it wasn't a voice per se, it was the technology interface live feed with the handler, which he later confirmed, by the way, in person. So that's what happened, and that's how they do it. And once they establish that brainwave,
why did they choose you? Why did they choose
everybody
you
always
over
asks
other
me
people?
that. I think I was a good candidate for the technology at the time, to be honest with you, because I have, and I'm sure you all are familiar with Merkaba, but I have a Merkaba signal that was very, very powerful before they showed up in 2004. And this is due to my light body buildup and all the spiritual work that I had done. I had a very powerful signal that would emanate, that literally what I call my universal celestial heartbeat and pulse. That seemed to intrigue them to some degree. And they liked that signal so much they interconnected it with a scalar wave and started their communication and started doing a bunch of different types of tests with me. So that is one of the reasons I think I was a good candidate. Plus a second degree black belt. I'm very good at weapons. Very smart. I'm a map maker. I think I was a good candidate for their technology, to be honest with you.
You're
and I think they also
basically a bright light, very bright light that they could take advantage of.
Well, I think so, possibly. Yeah, I thought I was at the time, and I'll tell you, I felt like I just got completely run into the ground. And the one thing I can tell you is, as being a free soul and a free spirit in light, it's very intrusive. It's dark. It's very dark. I can handle a lot of different worlds, but this is an ugly world. They really pull you into an ugly world. So just wanted to make sure people understood that it's not a joyride at all.
Does it work with everybody or only certain people?
I was going to say there's one thing that you said, Solaris. You also said that that they had actually physically put some kind of implant into you to make it easier for them to control you too.
Mm-hmm. Well, they did the remote brain hacking. Yes, I have lots of signal anomaly implants. I have one that was done with satellite-driven technology that was in my chest cavity that bounced to music on radio and literally would amplify around motorcycles and airplanes and all sorts of weird things. It was very interactive. So yes, I was tagged with this type of a technology where they had more remote control over me to a point where they could actually move my hands. They could move my eyes. I mean, literally, they were brain hacking me to a point where I wasn't in control of my body in 2004. I have to tell you, I was so traumatized. They were taken over. And this isn't a possession. This is interconnection with a live handler real time. So it's very creepy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So we'll probably interrupt you again, but I think everybody got their questions answered, and then we go to the next step. Everybody okay? Sasha? Kevin? Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Solaris.
Okay,
where do you more for us?
Okay. I know I'm talking fast.
Down a little bit,
everybody tells me to slow down. I'm telling you.
A lot of new terms.
I know,
yeah,
and I'm trying
by
to.
By the way, I think this is a good place to plug because I have it myself. You can get Solaris BlueRaven's DVD, Eye of the Remote, her whole testimony about all of this. I've got it. I watched it several times. It's fantastic and amazing. She goes into all the detail, and there's even a video in there with Steve Kohlberg, who's doing a live, basically locating these implants inside her body.
Right, the implant analysis scan. Wow. And you realize we had 45 minutes of raw video footage. I haven't even uploaded that. And that shows cameras going on and off and all sorts of weird stuff that was happening before he started to try to do the assessment. And I will be uploading that on probably Vimeo or something. I don't have it. I have it for sale on a DVD at my website, Night Shadow Anomaly Detectives, but I think I'm just going to upload it. And people want to donate, that's great, because I want it out there. And it has been cloaked for many, many years. It needs to be seen.
I think particularly it's very important these next few years because of the things that are going to be taking place for the next, until 2021.
Well, one thing I want to make a point of is that we are, we understand consciousness and freedom and grace and being in your bliss. And this type of a technology interface, when used as a weapon, does not allow for that. It doesn't allow for your freedom of thought, freedom of affirmations, freedom of prayer, freedom of feeling. It completely encapsulates you and controls you into a transhumanism program. And it is not pretty. And maybe it's a turn on for some people, but for me, I like technology, but this is abuse. And that's why I wanted to communicate to people and say, you know what, this is what these guys are doing with this technology right now. And I believe they are going to roll it out even worse for the mainstream within a few years. I mean, they're already talking about so much of this technology already. So,
what do you think are the possibilities of them using this tech? Sorry.
How did you get away? How did you escape them? How did you get out of this stuff? And what can other people do?
Well, I'll tell you, I pretty much just kept doing my own rewrite insofar as rewriting my own brain and my own programming. I just let go of the programs they were trying to run on me and overwrote it with my own multidimensional design, so to speak. I still have the signal anomalies, but they're not as strong as they used to be, although I have noticed for the past 3 years that there has been a kind of a ramp up insofar as signals trying to attack the back of my head. And I've had some issues that were health-oriented due to the way they're transmitting the signals now. But insofar as taking your power back, it's just step by step. It's your affirmations. It's holding on to your higher self, oversoul, superconscious, and not allowing these people to bring you down. I also had a lot of spiritual brothers and sisters that helped me along the way, a few on Maui, and just kept rewriting, and a lot of these people, I mean, they're powerful channels, powerful walk-ins. I had one lady on Maui, she came over to me, and I've known her for years, and she started to work on me, and she went into a trance as soon as she started to work on me, and then she went to the window and started, I don't know what, like in an altered state of consciousness, and she came back, and she couldn't hardly do anything. And this is when I was first plugged into the program. She was like, I kept seeing this black, she saw like a black Spider-Man suit on me, like some kind of a nano suit initially. So it was very weird. And I have transmuted it, but I think it's just determination and honestly just having the will to keep ascending.
But what did they want of you? How come they were picking on you? What were they using you for? What was their purpose? Sci-Spy
mainly is to see how the technology works, and it works really well because Sci-Spy, when I say Sci-Spy, we get hijacked. We have the brain hack. They use you for a spy. Basically, you're the eyes and ears in the communication system of the handlers, operators, controllers, and programmers. So they're using me. I'm walking around Maui, say I'm working surveillance and security, and my handler, Mossbach, and his buddies are interconnecting me. They have access to everything that I am doing. And remotely can actually experience to some degree on a virtual space what I'm up to. There were certain things that my ex-handler was able to do. I mean, he was able to get into my Ohana, and there was only one person who knew how to get in there besides me, and it wasn't him. And when he came out to see me, he knew exactly how to get in, and I know that's because of the technology interface we had. So basically, I think it was to test this technology. You're looking at DARPA right now. I don't know how much you follow DARPA. DARPA has literally made leaps and bounds with synthetic telepathy and the exact same technology I was interfaced with in 2004. The White House signed off on this, and I have confirmation of that because I remember when I was working in a security firm out there, we had DC calling my office, not my office, but where I worked, and asking about me. And I remember going in and the secretary's like, Solaris, the White House? And I'm like, what? I didn't have a clue what was really happening, but I did know that I was being interconnected into a program that was extremely classified. And they were going out of their way to utilize it, to take the templates and to sell it and say, look what we can market, look what we can do with this technology. Look at what she's capable of doing. Now let's use it elsewhere. And that's what happened.
Wow.
Yeah. And if you look at DARPA, you'll see this technology. Go ahead and look at the patents. Look at everything I've been saying. And right now, there are so many people talking about artificial intelligence. It's the big buzzword. Well, the AI, they have no clue what this thing is capable of because I do. And I'm telling you right now, once you can interface with it, you can kiss your free will goodbye because it's not designed to allow you to have free will or freedom of thought. It is not designed to do that. It is designed to take you over, encapsulate you, and program you. And if you don't comply, it will take you down. Now, that's the warfare program. I'm not saying it can't be changed, but I'm saying right now, as it stands globally with a militarized version, that is what they're doing with it.
What do you think they're going to do with the technology? Because I see all these new TV programs out that kind of hint to this kind of interface stuff going on. You know what I'm talking about?
Well, I think that they're trying to make it sound like it's really a cool kind of acid. They're trying to give everybody kind of calibrate it to technology interface so that they think it's fun and that it's going to be good. And well, it can be. It can be cool. It can be sci-fi's pretty cool. I thought live feed real-time communication was kind of interesting, and I wasn't scared of it. But I can tell you later on when you see how they try to ramp it up, and it was almost as if they started it and some dark division got involved and said, no, we're not doing this anymore. We're going to do this. And then it got really bad. So what I would say is that be careful what they offer you. It's like the apple with Eve. You be careful when you bite that apple because you don't know what the intent is behind it, literally. So there could be some malicious intent there, and there is. It's always about weaponization. I don't care. Everything they get their hands on, they weaponize. Every single thing.
It's about control.
So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So who's the dark forces behind all this? Have you gone to, the top of the dung heap and figured out who's benefiting?
I'm under the impression it goes
or extraterrestrials.
Well, I'm under the impression that it connects to the military-industrial complex to some degree, and you did mention my labs, and I think that is true to some degree. It goes into the underground. It goes in deep and dark because that's what my ex-NSA signals intelligence lawyer, who was shadowing my case, told me, because he wanted to go after these guys after he saw the documentary, and then within 24 hours, he changed his tune and called me and said, we can't do this anymore. You can't go there. It's too dark. It's too deep. We can't touch it. And that was the end of my case. Okay? So... Wow. I've been literally just going around like a little shadow, blending in with society, and doing my radio shows and all that stuff. But literally, it can be very insidious. It's an insidious project in the wrong hands of the wrong people. And in my hands, It wouldn't be. In your hands, it wouldn't be. You'd be using it for healing or doing something. I know that. And so far as extraterrestrial goes, I'm under the impression that they use us because we're star people. We are actually hybrids, in my opinion. We're not from here. I know that for a fact. So we have these gifts. We start enhancing these gifts through our what I call light body into Merkaba, into higher consciousness, and we activate our DNA through frequency. Well, they see this. They understand it. They're like, well, we have to try to manufacture this or clone it or do something with it. So that's when the technological interface comes in where they take this data and then they try to extract it and pull it into their program. So I actually believe they have reverse engineered a version of an artificial intelligence. It's not the real deal. It's actually their version of something off-world. But it's also based on our source heritage.
So what makes you think that? You said you have information?
Well, insofar as that goes, just my own research in general, and just the things that were said to me back in 2004. I tried to take notes through the rest of the program as best I could. A lot of things connected into the Area 51 and the S4. I just take that with a grain of salt, but I do remember them calling me Roswell 7 as a nickname, and I thought that was odd. Then I started looking into other aspects of who we are as star people, which means our DNA and who we are in consciousness is not, like I said, it's not from here, which makes us the extraterrestrial. And from my experience, it's like they're terrified of the alien within. In other words, they're terrified of the alien intelligence that lives within all of us, that I believe is connected to our soul spirit. So that is what I got from this, is that they are attacking the off-world species within us that is not from here to control and manipulate and entrain onto this world. So it's really about a galactic, multiversal, universal war, if you ask me. And it's a violation of universal law. And I say this often because when you start dabbling like that, when they start crossing the lines in the war zone and doing these things to not respect the free will of someone else, I think that's a big problem. And I think it's a universal problem.
So you said this started when you were here in Maui.
No, it started in 2004 when I was inducted in Colorado, in Superior, Colorado.
Oh.
And then after I basically got stalked and harassed out of my house with the technology, he told me to go to a place of my choosing where he could get to me, is what Neil Peart and Michael said. So I went to Maui. And that's because, I felt a resonance with that island. I've always loved Maui. My sister lives on Maui. But I just went there. And so that was the place I went. And then within a year's time, Michael showed up in person. What was interesting is that when he would leave me messages on my cell phone, or not my cell, but my house phone over there, and I was like, I didn't even know who Michael was. I was that out of it. I was that inundated with the technology that every time he said, it's Michael, call me. It's Michael, call me. I had no idea who he was. I thought it was my nephew. Later on, I met him in person. And then I asked him, I told him, we talked about the technology. We talked about the hearing. And he said, yeah, because I used to have one. And I said, well, what? I said, well, how long does it last? And he looked at me and said, well, how long do you want it to last? So, he was basically doing a lot of things. We talked for many, many times, on and off on the telephone and this and that. And they always stalled. They were always stalling for time. Always stalling. Mm-hmm. So
who is this Michael guy?
Michael D. Mosbach is he's the director of security and surveillance for the band Rush. He was the one who got involved with Neil. He was contracted by Neil to get me involved in the program and interconnect me live feed real time. And that is the guy who did it with Neil. And he is the guilty party, and he lied under oath, and he committed perjury, and he should be held accountable for that. But, they do it all the time. So,
wow.
He was a smoking gun.
And did you have that trial here in Maui, or was it on the mainland somewhere?
No, it was back. Actually, it was really weird. Is that I lived on Maui for a few years. I worked security and surveillance out there, literally being into the Sci-Spy. By the way, I was literally being handled by him and a lot of the programs connected to that. So literally, I was out there doing that thing, and then I wanted to go back home because home to me was Colorado. That's where I was married. That's where I taught my all of my stuff, my martial arts, my healing work. So I wanted to go home. I called Michael before I left, and I said, Michael, I don't know what to do anymore. And he got really quiet. He said, come to L.A. Well, I didn't come to L.A. I went to Colorado. And after I came to Colorado, he comes out here. He comes out here with his buddies. He comes out here with Brian Lee, Geddy Lee's relative, and literally sets me up in the courtroom, asked me if I want to talk to a magistrate. And I didn't know. I said, well, sure, if you're in my corner. He goes, oh, don't worry, I'll be there. But he wasn't there. He was there to set me up and basically stab me in the back, which is what happened. So I did go in and I testified in Colorado, and they literally just ignored the case. But I also know that was supposed to have been a public hearing, and it turned out to be a private hearing. And my lawyer couldn't make it because he said he was engaged in another case, and he said, well, ask for an extension. And I said, he goes, get 30-day extension. And I tried, and Mosbach goes, well, she's just lying. She's just stalling. She can't get 30 days. And so literally the judge ignored him, or ignored me rather, and allowed for Mosbach to literally run his BS syndrome in the courtroom. So I testified. Wow. I told the truth. He lied under oath, and that was it. And then they threw the case. They just destroyed it. So it was absolutely disgusting. And when I look at it, they really took advantage of me being in such a traumatized space, because in 2004, when I was inducted, I was pulled in April. My mother died in June. I was traumatized even going to her funeral. I was so disoriented from that alone, let alone the other stuff that happened to me. And then a year later, my sister died. So it was horrific. It was absolutely disgusting. Not to mention I lost my husband and my stepdaughter because they yanked me out of my life. Literally, when they do this to you, they want to take you away from anyone or anything who can be around you, support you, ground you, keep you normal, keep you focused. It's just terrible. It's mind control. Any way you look at it.
Did they make you do any criminal acts? Did they make you do things against your free will?
No, they didn't do anything like that, but I think that's because of my moral compass. I have a very good spiritual moral compass, so they probably figured they weren't going to get me into doing things that are bad. But I was working security and surveillance, and I did a good job. I was doing a great job. I was working all sorts of things. I worked in casinos when I got back to Colorado, and I was working concerts, actually. This is Mosbach. The thing is, that's my handler's job, not mine, but I was kind of indoctrinated into that world. So I was winding up, on stage. How do you get on stage with somebody like me who doesn't have any experience? All of a sudden, I get pulled into these programs, and I start doing, like, security on stage, security and this and that, and it's just ridiculous. So, no, they didn't have me doing anything in cities like that, but the torture program was 24/7. And the thing is, when you're resting, it's like the Borg. You don't have any downtime. You don't have any time where you're just enjoying the light and the peace of your own mind. You get what I call psychotronic visuals, where they'll hit certain areas of the brain to create these visuals like a television set, and you're just constantly getting a barrage of this transmission. And it's not mental illness. This is a signal interconnection program. It's absolutely horrific when you start looking at it. I kept as many notes as I could, and I have over 240 microcassettes of this information in my me basically documenting everything as best I can. So
wow,
that's just crazy.
It's crazy, all right. And they tried to make me look out to be, the thing is, I am very grounded and I'm very enlightened at the same time. And what really bothers me is that they try to interconnect people onto this technology. And if you act like you're not going to tolerate them, they'll try to make you look like you're crazy, or they'll try to do something to say, oh, she needs he called me a class level 3 threat. Okay. I'm not a threat to anybody. He was the threat. He was pushing me into the program. He was interrogating me and harassing me, and I countered him, and then he got pissed off. And that's exactly what happened.
He's lucky that you didn't rip him to shreds with your nails.
Well, I'm a martial artist, so I don't use nails, bud. You know what I mean? I'm like, I use the real stuff. I've got.
I know, but you could have claimed. Well, I don't know what you could have claimed, but you know what I mean? Under that kind of dress.
Well,
you know what? Sleeper agent, Jeez.
That's the saddest part of all, because the whole time they were trying to run that program on me, I was afraid to sleep, because I knew that I was constantly being hit with technology, and I didn't want to go into a sleepwalk mode because I didn't know what they were doing. I didn't know who was trying to remotely access me. I didn't know what they were trying to get me to do. So I stayed as grounded as I could, and I just kept my affirmations, and I kept my own spiritual design work overriding the whole thing. But I can tell you, this is dangerous for somebody who's literally very green with spirituality or green with anything, and they're not very grounded. I think this thing would put them into a type of a program for whatever they have an agenda for. It could be anything.
Solaris, if you were to imagine that you created this situation in your life for your own growth and for the good of humanity, what did you get out of all this?
Oh, no, I don't think so. That's a good question you ask, and a lot of people say, well, maybe you chose this path. I sure as heck didn't. I tell you what I did do. When they hit me with the technology, I wasn't afraid of it at first. And I was making a joke saying, oh, this is man-made. And then he said, well, I'm the angel of death. And I said, oh, and I started laughing. I said, well, so am I. And then that's when it all started, like boom, 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 boom. I would say that I guess that people will benefit down the road from what I have to say. But I will tell you that they did not want me to communicate this truth. And they were very pissed off when I did. And they ran a lot of interference when I was trying to write the Eye of the Remote series, the Eye of the Remote book I tried to write. And I did get it out, thank goodness. But they weren't happy about that at all. And as a matter of fact, last I heard, and this was, I guess Pert said he's retired for the next 4 years. Well, it's interesting how that rolls. They're kind of laying low to some degree, but they also have done a documentary to kind of counter my documentary, Eye of the Remote. They were always doing something to counter what I was doing. And I have to tell you, I love music, and Kevin knows this. He's a big Rush fan. I used to love their music too, and I used to have correspondence with Pert. And every time, it wasn't a group you're a fan situation. It was me respecting his work and him sending me a postcard, and it was never bad. So whatever happened along the lines, I don't know. All I know is that I did the best I could with the technology interface I was dealing with, but when it got down to being abusive, I had to do something. And I do wonder, because I've lost everything, and I don't play the pity party, but I'm like, what's really strange, and maybe y'all can relate or not. My life feels like I'm a ghost now. I feel like most of me is off planet, and what's here now is a shell of who I was. And it's very scary because I don't dream anymore like I used to. I feel like they've just parasitically sucked so much of my beautiful life force and my celestial energies, and I don't know what they've done with them. I don't know what's been done with those things. So it's very odd. It's a very strange feeling. And then I live back here in Colorado. My ex-husband's remarried now. He never knew what happened. He never understood the whole case. So he's basically living in an illusion, and I'm happy for him. I'm glad he's married. I'm not going to bother him. I leave him alone. But the problem with this is that people don't know the truth. And it's horrible. It's absolutely disgusting. And I'm just
what did he experience?
Let's go back to your story. Well, go ahead, Kevin. You ask him. At some point, I want to go back to the story.
I always wanted to know what was it that he was experiencing? What made your marriage break apart?
Well, what broke it apart was the fact that I wasn't verbally communicating with him. It was like I was in some kind of a trance. And yet I knew he was there, but I was literally engaged in the artificial telepathy live feed real time 100%. So that I wasn't really, and you have to realize that I've never been exposed to this before, so it's very traumatic to the body. So literally I was not really talking to him. I was literally interface 24/7. But he was acting strange. He was acting, I don't know, kind of like in La La Land in a weird world himself. And then when my mother passed away, I went to the funeral alone. And he went to a road race we were supposed to both go together. So I would say how it affected him was that there wasn't any communication. He actually said, "Are you being drugged? I'm going to call your doctor. What has he given you?" You know, we're both athletes. You have to understand, we teach martial arts. We're athletes. We're road race people. We run races. We both are very healthy. Once in a while, we'll have a beer or something. We do not do drugs or alcohol. I mean, that's just not our thing. So for me to act strange, I don't take medication. I was never on a medication. It's abnormal. So that was the whole thing too, the whole behavioral pattern of me. Even my stepdaughter said, "What was wrong with you?" Because she wrote me a letter, and she sent me a letter on Maui. She said, "I don't know what was wrong, but, you know," she said, "you kept staring out the window and you wouldn't talk." It's horrible. It's absolutely disgusting. Wow. And that's how they saw me, okay? So we tried to go, I remember vaguely going to a mediator, and we couldn't even communicate, and I wasn't even in my body at the time. So literally, the whole thing went just south, and I went to Maui, and then I even divorced from a distance. I faxed in my divorce. Wow. This is not normal. And then Mossbach shows up, my handler. This is sickening. So this was a premeditated event, and I didn't create it. I'll tell you point blank, I did. We had a wonderful marriage, and I was never, ever, ever. I thought he was like my soulmate. We figured we'd stay together forever. So very strange.
Wow. So you left Maui. You went back to Colorado. Then what happened?
Well, after I got to Colorado, that's when I stayed at a little place in Louisville. Just rented a room, for a little while, working security, and then that's when Mossbach showed up and said, "Well, how would you like to talk to the magistrate?" And that's when he set me up in the courtroom. So after that, I had to go testify in the courtroom. But the weirdest thing is that he handed me, when he saw me in public, we actually came to my place in Louisville, and he walked in with his buddies. He had two people with him, and one was Brian Lee, relative of Geddy Lee. And why he was there? Well, I don't know. Why was Geddy Lee's relative there? Well, once again. So you have these people. We all sat at the picnic table, and he said, "How do you like to talk to a magistrate?" And I said, "That's fine, as long as I have somebody in my corner." And he said, "Well, don't worry, I'll be there." And I think I mentioned this to you all. And the whole time that this is going on, Geddy Lee's brother, or whatever he is, Brian Lee, is sitting there looking through my poetry, and he's going, "Oh, I like your handwriting." And then Mossbach showing me his tattoos, like I care. And then the next thing I know, he's handing me a piece of paper, and I go, "Well, you're setting me up." And he looks at me and he goes, "Oh, have a nice day." And then I literally got on my cell phone as he was walking to his car, and I said, "Michael, you're setting me up. What is this about? I'm not signing it." And he used that as a weapon against me in the courtroom and said that I guess I violated the restraining order, because it was a restraining order at the time. And they actually detained me at the jail for 6 hours. That was illegal. The DA threw that out. And normally when you hand somebody a restraining order and you're on it, that makes no sense whatsoever. And he was there handing it to me on my property. And all I did was ask him a question from my property with my cell phone as he was walking off. They totally set me up to cover their tracks and to cover Pert's tracks. I mean, this was literally complete sanitization of the whole case. So, and that was pretty disgusting because, coming from me, I'm a really good citizen, okay? My husband and I were model citizens. We taught martial arts. We even had law enforcement coming to our class. We literally are good people. So for that to happen to me and them trying to set me up like I'm some sort of a freak or something, absolutely inexcusable. So, of course, the DA threw that part out, but it made me angry. It made me very angry that he tried to taint my character like that.
So that happened. What was the case about? What were they saying? Who was
the case? It was really weird because he didn't really say anything. All he did was put a restraining order. He wanted a restraining order on me. And like I was going to bother him.
There's no reason.
And then he was using things that he sent, like emails that we sent back and forth that weren't even anything. Even the judge was like, "Well, what's wrong with these?" I mean, there wasn't anything wrong with it. He was literally trying to put me in there to testify so he could try to set my ass up, excusing my French, and literally do sanitization, in my opinion, for this case. He wanted to cover his tracks with his client.
This is Geddy Lee's brother.
Is it Brian Lee? He looks just like Geddy. He has dark hair. I think it's either his brother or his son, and I can't remember. Excuse me for that, but I think it's one or the other. But he looks exactly like him. So, yeah. And they actually, get this, while they were over there at that house, Brian Lee went into the house and was talking to one of my housemates over there, asking all personal questions about me. He said he had to go to the bathroom, but he didn't. He went in there and he actually was talking. I wanted to know all sorts of stuff. And later on, my friend told me, so I was like, he was asking all kinds of questions about me. I was like, what? It's so strange. These people are nuts. I'm telling you right now. I'm trying to look back at all this stuff, and I just, for the life of me, I wish they would come clean. I know they never will. But you have to understand, too, that the live feed real-time communication system, the Snakes and Arrows album was done with me, live feed real-time interconnected with them. The feedback album was created by Pert because that's the feedback. Everybody get it now? The feedback. That's the feedback communication system he created with me, except they used it for like a retro thing. That was that. They had the R30 Contents Under Pressure, which is literally the book. Okay, now that was exactly what they were doing with me, live feed real time. And Contents Under Pressure is if you ever remember the Grace Under Pressure album, yes. Contents Under Pressure and Grace Under Pressure. If you're being interconnected with this technology, it is pressure. It is grace under pressure. If you look at the lyrics of Pert, he is talking about this formula of technology since day one. Nobody caught it. Nobody caught it. I don't know why. But it's there. And I guarantee you, Kevin, look through the lyrics, and you'll find it. Mm-hmm. So, all those things are there.
So you go through this court case, and you're still in Colorado. And what year are we looking at? What year is this?
It was 2006 when I testified, and then at that point on, basically, they screwed me over in the courtroom, and I just decided, well, since they're trying to do damage control, and they're trying to literally, I don't want to say they're doing an erasure, but they're literally doing damage control to such a degree they're trying to taint my character. I actually, after that, I did a very brief video that my friends told me to do because they were afraid I was going to disappear after that. It was a day after the courtroom, and they said, look, we're going to put you on video. We're going to upload it to YouTube because we don't want you to disappear. And these were two very good friends of mine, and they did. We did an interview. You can find it on my MK Ultra on there, and you can find it on my Medusa Storm 001 channel. And it's me. And initially, when we put that video up, which is me just talking about the technology, what I went through, as weird as it sounds, that thing went viral in an hour. We had 10,000 hits in an hour. A friend of mine called me and said, this thing is taken off. And they got so upset that we took it down. And then Pert goes, well, we're trying to get all this taken down. Well, we put it back up. It's back up now. But at the time, they were flipping out. And it's actually, at one point when they were in town here, they were playing at Red Rocks, they had the audacity to have this little, I guess they had the picture of me and they were passing it around saying, oh, if you see her, she's armed and dangerous, turn her in. I was just like, and I was working surveillance at the casino then. And I was like, look at these jackasses, excuse my French. And I actually even told my lawyer, I said, can you believe what they're doing? And he actually just told me to keep track of everything. But just to give you an idea of how they were trying to do a character assassination on me, make me out to be the loony, when in fact I was just telling the truth, I'm just a good person who is telling the truth. This is what happened. This is the technology. They're the ones who did it. It doesn't matter what divisions get involved later on because I know they do. But I would say these are the guys who initially did it. And he even told me, live feed real time in 2004, he said, you're going to hate me for this. Oh, man, I'm beyond hatred. Everybody tells me, oh, you need to forgive. This is such a detrimental type of warfare program. It's so hard, let me tell you, to forgive people who do this kind of abuse to you. It's extremely hard. You have to be a saint.
Did you notice if you were being coordinated with other people that were being puppetized like you? Were you the only one, or were there others that you could sense were part of a field that you were moving together in?
Well, initially in 2004, I know that they were interconnected with me live feed, and that was the band members, literally. It was Michael Mosbach and the band members. It was Alex, Getty, and Neil, and primarily Neil with Michael, big time. And then Getty Lee and Alex interconnected here and there. Live feed real time. And the thing is, later on down the road, I would say that it seemed to me like there were hives associated. In other words, there were other things that would start to do, like other people would get an access to some degree, or other people would be involved in the monitoring. I would get live plants in the area. People would show up out of the blue with very, very strange and auspicious comments. I had a white van that showed up, which really looked like DC when I was on Maui, and for example, and I had people coming out of the van asking if they, I was a runner, so they go, can I run with you? Can I be a rabbit with you? And I was just like, this lady comes out of the van, and then the other guy's sitting in the van, and she's talking about all sorts of stuff and in code, but usually what they talk about is if they hurt their heads, they'll mention something about their head injuries, and that has something to do in code with the technology interface. I will say that I do believe that there were other people that were pulled into these projects. I do know, and I suspect highly, because of my own research and investigations, that Selena Taylor, who was prior to her, supposedly got killed in an accident of some kind, was interconnected with the same technology I was pulled into. I also believe his wife, Jacqueline Taylor, was involved also. Now, the new wife is a handler. Her name is Carrie Nuttall. I call her Nutcase. Now, she's the one who's literally handling him big time. But she was an accomplice to this war crime. In my opinion, it's a war crime. So you've got her involved. So it's like their families know about this stuff. There's no way their families cannot know this stuff. I know they do. So if you're asking, I believe that there's a bit of a hive associated with it, and I do know that this particular technology can be used and deployed on various citizens. I just happened to get pulled in with these guys initially, but then it got delegated to other departments. I do know that the covert intelligence community did get involved, and that's when things got really bad. So this is why I disclosed it. I just sent some information to DC about a week ago about some of this assessment that I've been doing, and I'll tell you what, somebody's listening over there. Because now they're talking MK Ultra. Somebody's listening to me. I don't know who, but somebody is. So anyways, I'm not saying I'm the only one, but I've been hitting them hard.
Are there people in major power positions that are being controlled like this?
I would say that they have to be interconnected with technology. I'm suggesting that there's brain links involved, especially with people like the Clintons and I believe that they were interconnected with the technology to give them sci-spy access. Because let me tell you something. This is why PERT got into it with Mossbach. They both use this technology for surveillance and security because you don't need a headset, you don't need a phone, you don't need anything. All you have is the live feed real-time communication. And if you're not using it in an abusive fashion, you are really covered. You can know where to go. People can tell you which direction to go. You have communication, and nobody else can hear it. So yeah, it's a good system for sci-spy. It's an excellent system. And I was shocked that the Secret Service doesn't use it. And I don't know if they do. I see them with their little earpieces. I'm like, you dudes don't need that crap. I know damn well we have this exotic technology because I was interconnected with it. So once again, I do believe that yes, they're doing it. But the problem with that is then they become the puppet, because once they get interconnected, that thing will run a program to take you over. It is not designed to be a balance. I'm sorry, it's not. It's designed to take you over. It's designed to completely encapsulate you and control and manipulate you like a puppet. And if you break orbit or if you resist, it will hurt you. It will try to take you down. And it did to me. I've had a lot of issues over the years, health-wise. I'm very strong and I'm very healthy normally. So I think that's one of the reasons I'm still here. And plus divine forces. But I'll tell you, it's rough. It's a rough ride.
So it's something that you do where you're able to get spiritual allies, that you're able to marshal enough good power to overpower this system. What's your meditation? How do you empower yourself? How can somebody protect themselves?
Well, I will tell you, it's affirmations and rewriting your thoughts, rewriting affirmations. I'm sure you're familiar with maybe a unified chakra meditation. The problem I ran into initially in 2004 was when I do my meditations, they wanted that so they could map it and then interconnect a scalar wave onto it so they could create their own formula. But I would say that it's being around spiritual people, staying true to your what I call your ascended master, higher self, oversoul, superconscious design work, and being around the right people and just staying steady and yet grounded. What I will say is that it's very, very hard to disable this technology. I've talked to developers, I've talked to people, and I'm telling you right now, because it hits my central nervous system the way it does, because it's interconnected. If you look at the implant analysis scan, I am wired. And the problem with this is that if things go bad, there's no way to take this out without killing me, in my opinion. I mean, I don't know. I really don't. I think the signals have gotten weaker over the years, but I'm not sure what will be left of me if something like this gets removed permanently. I have no idea. Although I do know I was okay before that showed up. But another thing is you have to understand is when we start rerouting ourselves to ascended levels of our light body, we start rewiring our to the Merkaba level. We start getting our exotonal lines and our meridians all aligned. And that is a circuitry system that they hijack. So what they're doing is they're hijacking that circuitry so they can interconnect it on with their technology and then create their own encapsulation onto the target. But in answer to your question, you just have to stay strong and faithful, be around the right people, and do the best you can, body, mind, and spirit, detoxing yourself and constantly working on a solution. I have never given up on solutions. I am my own scientist. I'm my own lab rat. I mean, I try things all the time to see what works and what doesn't. And I never give up, ever. So I think that's part of it.
I guess the other side of it, because I can feel your good energy and your light. Can you transform them? Is it two ways? Is it just that they're affecting you, or can you just give them some of the empathy and love that you've got? Is that possible?
Actually, I did that in 2004. I did nothing but love and light, sending them love and light. And I mean, talk about fuzzy bunnies. I was constantly just being so loving and sending light and doing my meditations and blessing them all the time. So if they didn't get Ascended Master Consciousness initiation, I don't know what would. I don't know because I haven't talked to them in person recently to see if they've changed in personality or if they're more enlightened or they're more calm or they're more happy. I have no idea. But I do know I did my best to do that in 2004, and I did it for years and years and years and years. It was only until later on when I started realizing how much damage they had done to my life that I started saying, well, this is ridiculous. And then the technological things that hit, excuse me, when they hit you, it's really, in my opinion, it can be a remote assassination program, which means it kills you. It's a kill shot. You know, they talk about this kill shot with Ed Dames, Major Dames. That's not the kill shot. The kill shot is a black satellite program that interconnects targets like what they did to me. That's designed to take you down. That's designed to murder you remotely. And if you don't comply with the program, it will take you out. Now, you can send all the love in the world to these guys, but if they don't like you, or if they just, it's in their blood or it's in their mission to basically have you either be conformed, re-educated is what they call it, or expire, they're going to make you expire. That's just what they're after. I mean, I'm sorry, but this is how they run. It doesn't mean they won't change down the road, but I mean, too little, too late at this point. So,
what is this black satellite program you referenced?
The black satellite program is the covert satellite systems that are used in the underground bases that correlate to the technology interface. In other words, there's other peoples and operators that's beyond classified that literally can access the technology so that people are being inducted and triangulated from a distance. You've heard stories about people, they have satellites that can zoom in on this. Yeah, they can zoom in on everything, all right, but they can do a lot more than that. As a matter of fact, they can hack and remotely access a target and create a lot of misery for that target. And they can also do it on a mass scale, although I don't think they've deployed it like that yet. They're starting to select people. They pluck them out. So, but that is part of the black satellite system. Go ahead.
So have they kind of let you go?
Not really. I mean, I'm never going to be alone. I mean, in a sense that I have technology still here, but it's getting weaker, yes. But so am I. My body's breaking down. So it's been 15 years. You have to look at it on that scale. And so far as leaving me alone goes, I do my own thing. Everybody knows they know me inside out. I mean, gosh, I should have a clearance beyond a clearance after the crap I've been through. So there's no reason for them to bother me. We have kind of a thing where it's neutral positive right now, although I still want people held accountable for the damage. And I've always said that these people owe restitution for damages. They also need to be held accountable for the misuse and abuse of power and technology interface. You need to let people know what you're going to do. You can't just go in and invade somebody's home with a technological interface and drag them out of their home, create trauma for them and their families, and even their animals, and then think it's okay and then go on an R30 tour and celebrate, rah, rah, rah. It's not okay. And I don't know what on earth they were thinking, quite honestly. Maybe they were out of their minds, which is highly possible. But you don't do that sort of thing. It's just not acceptable. And this is one of the reasons I've been coming down so hard on it. It's just, I don't care who they are. And the problem that we're running into is, and you've probably seen it, Hollywood has kind of like a green light and a get out of jail free card. They can do whatever they want with their cabals, and nobody seems to give them any penalties. It's okay for them to brain hack people remotely. It's okay for them to gaslight somebody. No, it's not okay. I don't care who they are and what divisions they're affiliated with. So I think President Trump is kind of working on this, to be honest with you. But we'll see. I'm not going to hold my breath. It's been 15 years of my life gone. I can't get those years back. So
when you say that Trump or somebody out there is working on this, what do you mean by working on it? What are they doing?
I would say he's alluded to the fact that I think he's on to what they're up to with the technological warfare program, meaning the stuff they do behind the scenes. They were all upset about the surveilling that was going on and during the election, like that's a big deal. And I'm like, dude, that's nothing compared to interconnection program, live feed real time. Try getting remotely brain hacked, try getting a spy into orbit. They cannot access, if you have like stuff bugged in your room, that's one thing. But when you have a person coming into your office who's plugged into the technology, you're not going to know unless you're part of that program. So once again, this is what I mean. I sent him a lot of data. A lot of data that the generals have, data that everybody has in their intelligence unit. They won't share that with him. They're not going to give him this information. So I sent it. I sent it a long time ago. As soon as he got into office, I was like, well, maybe I can get this guy's attention. Well, not only did I send it to him, I sent it several times. And the last one, I think, rang a bell. So the last one was more of an assessment. I've also sent it to some other people, which I know received it. So we'll see. But what I do know is that he's starting to address the abuse that's going on. And abuse takes on many forms, from sex trafficking, child trafficking, technological trafficking. And another thing is this technology, when inducting a child with this, forget it. The kid is gone, because you're going to have that kid under mind control so quick and so traumatized, that kid's not going to have free will at all. This is another beast. This is a tentacle of the beast that needs to be looked at. And this is why I think that they are looking at it, because it's not just about pulling in adults. It's about what they can do with the children with this technology, too. Can you imagine someone like my stepdaughter's age who gets pulled into this? She would have lost it. I mean, they probably said, oh, my God, my daughter's schizophrenic. Let's get her therapy. They wouldn't have known. Okay. And this is why I bring it to people's attention. Like, there's a technology out there that can mimic mental illness, schizophrenia, bipolar, all sorts of schisms, even not aneurysms, but having seizures and things like that. So people need to understand. Somebody's got to.
Well,
this technology is so reminiscent of what Stuart Swerdlow reports from Montauk of basically splitting a person and controlling them in such a total way. It's a further application of it.
Right, you're right.
Not technology.
Yeah, I've interviewed Stuart too on my show, and also that's EEG heterodyning and cloning. And yes, they mix signals onto the brain and overlay it to interface an alter or a personality inserted onto the target or into the target that's programmable and actually programmed by covert intel. So they'll have an alter that triggers under keywords and numbers, codes, frequencies, whatever it is that the trigger is, they'll be triggered. And that is scary because that heterodyning is a big deal with the government agencies, especially Alphabet. So yeah, I'm familiar with that one really well. Yeah, they do and that's where people can say, well, look, they're schizophrenic. Look, there are multiple personalities. Well, who created the personality? Let's say EEG cloning and heterodyning interface. That's who, and that's usually done by CIA or a spinoff of the agency. So
right, and they're using people to fly ships and all kinds of stuff.
Symbiotic interface, but you know what? You can do that. You all are, as star people, we have a natural ability to interface with technology, but symbiotic machine interface. We can fly craft. We are the craft. So that is something they're hijacking to use with the reverse engineering science department.
Right.
Are we on a break?
So we're coming up at the top of the hour. We have a break any second now. So we're going to be coming back in like 5 minutes from the break. Waiting for the music. And then we're going to, the second hour will cover all this. We got a lot to cover. This is fascinating. Everybody get your questions ready for Solaris. Go ahead, honey.
I'm just moved to, I think, well, what would I do in such an attack? And one of the things I would think of is getting my Ishideva, my Paragon, and really bringing, the Archangel Michael or Jesus to help me, or some figure that I could get my mind behind in order to fight this control.
That's a good comment, and actually I did that as well. Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk about this and more. We come back in about 5 minutes.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Did you ever feel that things were not quite right? That everything was just ever so slightly askew?
Do you have, to paraphrase Morpheus, a splinter in your mind?
If you're interested in hearing the latest information about UFOs, the paranormal,
ancient cultures and structures,
monatomic elements,
longevity,
fantastic discoveries in science,
downloaded to your brain,
then tune into us. Hi, I'm Dave.
And I'm Mackie.
And we are Shiny Side Out, Sundays 2 to 4 a.m. Eastern. See you then.
Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Join me weekdays for my new show, Tell Chris Joe. This is going to be a problem show brought to you live from Kensington. Thursdays, I'm dealing with hot topics, heated debate, what's new around the world, and ring-ins to discuss listeners' problems and offering considered and heartfelt solutions. So join me, Chris Hart, for Tell Chris Joe. Stop what you're doing, grab a cup of tea, and coming live from Kensington. Relax, let me entertain you with a coffee bar online. Listeners' very personal problems. So that's Thursdays, 2 p.m. in the afternoon, Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. See you there. It's going to be lots of fun.
Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or a computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it. I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? Well, squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Looking for a nightcap to fill your listening needs? Come join us on Spaced Out Radio with me, Dave Scott, right here on Revolution Radio. Monday through Friday for 3 hours a night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, we will take you down the supernatural path. From ET contact to the paranormal and all of the spiritual, cryptid, and conspiracy stories between, you can find right here on Revolution Radio, at spacedoutradio.com, on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show. Spaced Out Radio. It's a night of talk and interaction. Are you experienced?
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Stargate to the Cosmos, and I'm your host, Jennifer Lessin, with Dr. Sasha Lessin and Kevin Estrella. Our producer is Thomas Becker, and our guest is Solaris BlueRaven. But before we get back to our show, I'd like to remind everybody to go over to that donation button on revolution.radio and do make your donation at this time. We greatly appreciate your donation. A bad pager. How are we doing this month?
Yes, ma'am. We got 2586 and we need 27, so we're still, a couple of $100, well, a little over $100. So, and a couple of days to go. So please donate.
Please donate. Okay. So when we left, we were talking. What were we talking about, guys? Sash, where were we?
What we're talking about is that the spiritual means that we have to combat this militarized AI that's putting us down a junk singularity, which is a false. It's not a spiritual path. It's the opposite. It's a robotized path.
Yeah, as I call it, oratronic to some degree. It's incomplete, but I would say it's so weaponized and so negative that it's totally against your spirit and your consciousness. In my opinion, it's very toxic. But you're right about, I know before we hit the break, you were talking about bringing in God, the archangels, and Christ, and I did all that. I think I touched on the break. I was bringing in affirmations and calling on the big guns, and it wasn't that, and I'll reiterate this again for the listeners, it wasn't that I wasn't protected by divine forces. It was because they were using a warfare program that's designed to completely attack the electromagnetic field. They were puncturing my electromagnetic field. And I didn't mention this to you, but there's a woman on Maui who was doing radionics for me. And as soon as this happened to me, I got on the phone and I said, look, I know they tagged me in my chest cavity. I can feel the signal. And she did a radionics and she said, yeah, it looks like somebody just put a hole right through your chest cavity. And this is what I mean. But radionics does a really good job, as you all probably know. I would say one thing about, besides affirmations and divine forces, radionics will broadcast out any transmissions that are coming in that could potentially attach onto your electromagnetic field through a radio wave, I would say, or a microwave or anything else. I would say try to use radionics to deter. But the other thing that they do is that they can puncture and basically tag you and interface you with a technological neural interface. So it's not about not being protected. It's just about if they want you, they can get you. Unless you're underground in some kind of a steel cage or whatever, I don't know. So... And I've tried everything.
This is so you're not safe anywhere on the planet. They can get you wherever you are.
As far as I can tell, that's the case. And most of the time it goes into your home. And the problem that I ran into is I didn't have to go get dragged into a car somewhere in an underground base. These guys tagged me inside my home, at my own sanctuary, in my own privacy. And this is what I mean by where is our privacy these days? Well, we don't have any anymore. And it goes from spying through television sets and iPhones, and then it goes into something like what I went through. Key logging in computers, and then nosy people, and then all of a sudden you get interconnected with your brain. And then how far does it go, and when do they stop? Is my point.
Right. So do you meet a lot of people that this is happening to, or?
Over the years, over the years, I'd say that targeted individuals, as you probably are aware, a lot of those guys. A lot of people have been pulled into certain military abductions or MyLabs. A lot of people have implants. Steve Colburn's noticing more and more that people are starting to get loaded with implants. A lot of people have technology built inside of them. Where did they come from? Well, I'm not sure, but they were somehow along the way, these people are loaded. So that's another part of it. I think there's a lot of people out there that do have technological interface, but probably maybe not switched on. So that's a part also. And then all it takes is, a flip of the transmission to turn it on. So, but I have had people contact me over the years telling me how much they've been pulled into covert programs or they've had similar experiences, not the same, certainly not the same person. Although I did have a few people contact me about the band who were suspicious about certain people that worked with the band in their inner circle and had weird deaths associated. And they said there was some weirdness that was going on with them. So, I gave it to my lawyer and I just, that's all I can do with it.
Right. So after you moved to Colorado, let's continue with your story. What else would you like to tell us about your story, your personal story?
Well, after I moved to Colorado, I think I told you I went through all the ordeal of the court and everything. And then after that, I just kept working security and surveillance. I wound up working surveillance at the casinos for a while. And then I'm good at it. But I have to finish my writing, and that's one of the things I felt there's a side to me that's not complete unless I'm putting the truth out there and I'm starting to roll with the information that I know I'm here to roll with. And honestly, my whole life was taken away to a point where it's hard to recover and pretend it's business as usual after you go through this anything, whether it's a contactee or a MyLab or something like this. It is impossible to go back to the norm. So I did do that for a while, and I'm still kind of have my gaming license, but I'm literally just writing books and working on a new documentary. Doing some other things that down the road. I do presentations, as you probably are aware, and some other things, just trying to live a life or trying to get some kind of a life. But it's hard because here it's almost like this. There's too many bad memories here now, so it's really, really rough.
So let's go over your books then. What was your first book that you wrote?
Well, the first book I wrote was Transmutation Through Ascension, Soul of the Sun, and that was published in 2004. That is actually the book that triggered the whole thing. That was the book that I sent out to PERT after a kickboxing student of mine told me that he had his whole family, what happened to his family, because I had lost touch with PERT. I'd stopped communicating with him in the 90s, and apparently that's when all this happened. This tragedy happened to his past family. And so when my kickboxing student told me about it, I said, well, maybe I'll send him a copy of my book, Transmutation Through Ascension. Well, I didn't know that the whole world was going to implode after I sent that, but that's what happened. So this book is about light body, DNA activation, spiritual lifestyle. It covers a lot of different topics. It's kind of a 101 to people who are interested in ascension work. And at the time, I was doing a lot of healing work on people, a lot of DNA activation, just working with the levels that I've been working with, the initiations I've had in the past. So that was my path, and that's what I was doing. And that was my first book I ever wrote. And prior to that, I had a newsletter called Goddess Ascending, which was about, it was me basically just streaming cosmic energy about earth changes. And it was actually spot on. I need to resurrect these files because they were really good. And of course, that was way back before we had the cell phones. I mean, I was starting to do all that stuff. I was kind of under the radar. I think that's what it was. I was doing my own thing. I was having phenomenal experiences with myself, and not only myself, but with people I was doing healing work on. And then I got on the radar, and that's when the end of ends,
So you were doing some really good work, and you were helping people with this transmutation through ascension. And that probably brought them you into their awareness.
Well, it definitely
Like,
did something to him.
Good work.
Yeah, tall poppies get plucked.
Yeah, it's really true. For whatever reason, like I said, I'd send you a copy of my book. I need to get some more copies here at the house, but it's a very pretty book, and I'm sure it's nothing you haven't learned or taught along the years. But you know, because I know you're all light beings, so you understand this language. But it's pretty much that. And the ascension work that's in here is really good, and I'm very proud of it, actually. And the more I look at that book, the more I hold it close to my heart, because, you know, had they left me alone, I would have been doing more books on ascension and more books on etheric light mastery surgery. And, you know, I'm sure you're familiar with etheric organ replacement, or how you can replace an overlay healthy onto, say an etheric organ onto an unhealthy organ and heal it, right? Or maybe you're not. But I had all these Arcturian healing systems that I'm interconnected with naturally, because I was initiated into by a walk-in.
So they didn't want you to be able to share that knowledge. It was this kind of sharing that upset them. Is that so. What it was content?
I can tell you one thing. It's about your gifts. It's about who you are as multidimensional beings. When we switch on our gifts at DNA level, when I talk about the Merkaba, you know that's the vehicle of light. You know, people talk about needing a spaceship to traverse the cosmos. We don't. We are the ship. We are the vehicle. We can phase shift into other realities if we change our biomolecular field and our frequency, and we all know this. So this is a mystery school ancient teaching. We all know it. Those of our star people know how to do it naturally through our cellular memory. That is a huge threat to these guys and these undergrounds in the Black Science Department, the Black Space Program. If they know you can do anything that's beyond their spectrum or their box, they're going to want to control it. They're going to want to manipulate it, and they're going to want to create their version or create a reverse engineered aspect of it, because they certainly don't like us just being ourselves as multidimensional beings, to be honest with you all. Another thing I wanted to point out, I was doing grid running. I don't know how familiar you are with this. I had a group of people in my group each month. In the first week of the month, we would come in and do a holographic grid run onto the planet. What we were doing was running the light from the beyond the galactic center onto the grid, to the holographic grid, so we can help raise the vibration of the planet and just dispel the evil. And we would target certain areas on the map, and some are a lot. We're in South America, by the way, and we would just infuse light there. And I think, honestly, I didn't realize that to myself. I'm thinking to myself, well, that's harmless. You know, we're just doing our little thing for 20 minutes. I don't think it was so harmless. I actually think that was something, even something as simple as that, was a threat.
Oh, it's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah. I thought so too. But thank you for saying that, because these are the little things that I would do that I thought were just, you know, just the norm. But this is something that they don't want us being light. They don't want us ascending. They don't want us bringing in cosmic design. They don't want us uplifting each other or activating our DNA. I mean, they want us to be like these entrained animatronic, just switched off units. We're not designed to be that way. So it's no good.
Right. So you were interfering with their plans.
I think so.
Let's see. Your next book was let's see. I'm looking through.
Eye of the Remote.
Eye of the Remote. Tell us about that book. What's that about?
Okay, well, the Eye of the Remote series book is the first one I wrote, Eye of the Remote, Black Operations and Areas Beyond 52, was because of the induction I went through with the band. And I had to crank this out because I knew that I had to put the truth out and a documentation of it, besides what I did on YouTube. And so I started writing this book after I was screwed over in the courtroom, to be honest, and that's when I started putting this out. And this particular book covers everything you can possibly imagine. I mean, I'll read you over some of the chapters, but sure. You know, I was pretty much, it covers celestial heritage, star seeds, indigos. It covers the virtual and interdimensional space, ground control and silent mediums. I talk about machine-based telepathy, which is synthetic telepathy, multidimensional channels and mediums and frequency, and how a spiritual channel, like any of us who are switched on, can get hijacked, and they can use an electronic interface to almost create an entity communication, which will be deceiving them. It's almost like electronic possession. It will be a communication. They'll think it's a guide or a spirit or an ancestor or a ghost, and it's going to be the communication system. This is why I give everybody a heads up. Please use discernment, because sometimes it can be part of their communication in the underground. Very insidious, and they'll be nice to you at first, and then they'll reel you in, and they won't be so nice. I talk about Red Helmet projects and MK Ultra related programs, like what we were talking about with Stuart Swerdlow. I talk about quantum signal mapping in physics and stimulated signal maps, the death experience, false dimensions, and mapping of vitals. One thing I wanted to mention with that was my mother transferred out in June. They actually mapped her when she was transferring and interfaced her communication onto me, in a sense that they were using her voice pattern to try to make me more vulnerable like a child. So they figured I would respond better when they used my mother's voice pattern. And I knew it wasn't my mother. I knew it wasn't her. And I knew her way of, we were very spiritually connected, but she wouldn't do that. And I knew that that's what they were doing, to try to emulate her through the communication system, to make a mockery of her death, but also to try to control me. So that was going on. And I'll tell you what, these guys do what I call a very insidious ritual around people who are dying. In my opinion, just from what I experienced, I think that they're mapping people's brainwave activity and utilizing that brainwave activity onto their communication system with artificial intelligence. And I think that's where we're getting fake ghosts, what I call synthetic ghosts. And that you have to watch out for. So those are some things that I'm looking at. I also talk about my... Go ahead.
Ghosts? Are you talking about like ghosts? Fake
I'm
ghosts?
talking, yeah, spiritual, like ghosts. Like Ghost, ghosts like spirits. Yes. There's a synthetic ghost that they create. In other words, it's a version, it's a copy, it's a dim copy of someone who's transferred out, but it's not really them. They use that to lure people, to program them, and to create a vulnerable, because they know, those of us who love our ancestors or love our parents, if you have somebody you've copied and you're replicating in communication and then you're playing a feedback onto the target, that person's going to respond. They're going to be more vulnerable. They're going to lower their shields. They're going to believe.
Right.
And for me, for some reason, I'm so switched on. I said, that's not my mother. And I knew it wasn't her. I mean, these guys are insidious. Some of the stuff they're capable of doing, you wouldn't believe some of the stuff these guys are capable of doing. That's why I say whatever they're doing, excuse me, with DARPA or these other guys, they're so far advanced in the black science department. It's not even funny. Some of these stuff that they're doing is unbelievable. But I do talk about a lot of different things. I do talk about the high security projects and covert programs targeting civilians. I mentioned 9/11 emergency security systems, silent radar, and covert intelligence. I mean, I talk about everything you can think of. And I don't know how many levels you want to go in here, but it's a very good book.
What I just keep wondering is, what if you turned it back and say, listen, you who are controlling me, look inside, because you too are of the light. Yes, you won't disappear, and just see if you can send it back. Is that anything that appeals to you, or do you think?
Well, I think you're right. I think that, yes, there is a way to do that, and I have done it in the past, as I said. I think that what this thing does is also, after they interface you on with the artificial intelligence, it's a mimic. So it kind of mimics you to some degree, unless you're doing something where you're communicating something it doesn't like. Then if you're using, like, you know how Google is, okay, they're censoring now, okay? It's worse than Google, because what it does is, if it doesn't like what you're saying, it's going to zap you. It's almost like a brainwave entrainment program. Okay, this is what I mean. What they're using for this is almost like a beta test, but that's what they do. But I agree with you. I think you're angels, both of you, and that I'm like that too. But there's a side to me that's like a Valkyrie now, and I wish I wasn't. But it's because I've been so through this horrible war program that I'm trying to be nice to these units or whatever's left, and I'm just having the hardest time. But I like your approach to that. And I'll try to send more light to the situation. I really will, just by you suggesting that. I did do it in the past, and I stopped after years and years and years of getting, completely screwed over by this whole thing. But, yeah.
So the ultimate agenda is what? They control our paradigm. They control everything. Right. They control both sides of the veil. They control all the souls.
And you know that
we're a prison planet.
That's right. One thing you all understand is that when we manifest our own reality, we create reality, right? We can manifest and create as magic. We think something, we manifest a reality. Well, if it's in alignment with the multiverse and with source, it manifests. But these guys are creating what I call spin-off realities, false realities. In other words, they're trying to hijack us to create a mass collective of a false agenda based on an entrainment program in a virtual hive that's communicating data that's not even connected to the full light universe. And now we're all getting swept away in this dark tide. Well, that's not where we belong. We know this. So how do you break orbit with it? You have to ascend out of it. They don't want to ascend with us. From what I can see, they don't want to move on. They don't want to ascend. They want to bring us all down. So I don't want to do that. So that's why I say there's a breakaway society more than you realize with the Black Science Department, Black Space Programs, but with us, I think we're the next breakaway, to be honest with you. I think the Star people are the next breakaway. So
right. So we're going to ascend out of this.
It just sounds just exactly like the Nazi program of the Fourth Reich. Ever since Operation Paperclip, it brought these people here that basically controlled everything to the degree that they've reached in this very program that you're talking about. It seems like a continuation to me of the Nazi program.
I think you're right on about that. And the one thing I will mention briefly is that when they first interconnected me with the technology, I did see Nazi symbols. They did show that. And Pert had one too. And he was wearing a helmet with one. And I thought that was weird that they would show me his symbol. But he's affiliated somehow. And I don't know how. I've never called him out on it. But I will say he must have ancestors connected or something. But that was and their whole agenda, I don't know what's going on with people's brains, why they would want to be part of this no world order, I call it. But I guess that they think there's power involved in there. And I understand that this is a very lucrative technology in a sense that when you have control over the masses, well, it's like, wow, that must be a real power trip for these guys, to be able to brain hack somebody and remotely access them. There are no secrets, and now they can play judge and jury on somebody. The term witch hunt comes to mind because, Rush had a song called Witch Hunt. But that's what they do. They do an interrogation persecution program if they want to, and they'll torture and insult people, and they'll play the devil's advocate with electronic telepathy. It's not a demon, it's not a ghost, and it's not God. It's not anything like that. It's an electronic program that's basically deployed by these people, and that's why I want people to understand that the boogeyman is really a two-legged. It's not a spirit. It's not a ghost. It's not a god. It's just man, and he's done a very bad job with what he's had access to. So, but I agree with you. Yeah, it is the Fourth Reich.
They make you into a corporate slave.
Yep.
If they got control of you like that.
Oh yeah, even my handler, even Michael was being handled. I could tell by the way he was acting that he was being handled. He doesn't step out of line or he's done. So, I understand that that's the contract they make and that's their deal, but I didn't make that contract when they pulled me into the program. I didn't say I was going to do that. I wasn't afraid. That doesn't mean I'm going to say yes, right? So it's very interesting how that works. I do talk about time travel over here and also creating the the illusion of space. Another thing I want to mention too, we talk about the phase shifting, but time travel is literally that. You all know that. It's consciousness and motion. So we can go into any illusion of space and time and be there. The thing is that people have forgotten their way through the mystery schools. They forgot who they were as spiritual beings, as celestial beings. And I think that's through indoctrination over the centuries, And thank goodness those of us who are old souls or off-worlders have that database. My goodness. And I think they're looking for that. That's another thing. I just want to make really, you can shut me up anytime, but I was talking about the MyLabs because when MyLabs get pulled into these covert warfare programs, they try to extract data because they want to know what the contactee knows. So they're trying to get the data, and then they create a screen memory to overlay it onto the military abductee, and I think that that's pretty much what they're trying to do is acquire information from an off-world species that wants nothing to do with them. So.
Powerful analysis. You make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, it makes sense to me too, and it's always about logic too, because I try not to write in any fantasy with it, but I do know what the technology does from my own personal experience, so I can assess it when other people get pulled in, whether they're contactees or whoever. So, but I think it boils down to our spiritual liberty and free will and being honored. And as you were saying, we don't want to live in a prison planet. We're not supposed to be on a prison planet. We're supposed to be part of the galactic neighborhood. We're supposed to be avatars. We're supposed to be not like the transhumanism avatar, but the avatar consciousness where we can just go wherever we want to go in multidimensional form. I know it sounds like science fiction, but I'll tell you what, it's really not. And you all know this, that within 10 years from now, they're going to try to get everybody into the transhumanism and say, oh, look what you can do with us interconnected. But we can do that without that. We have it built into us naturally. Yeah. We don't tell anybody that.
I just get such a heavy hit that you and your ex should just look in each other's eyes and have a long, long talk. And I think you have parts of the puzzle for each other.
That's sweet. You know what? I've avoided talking to him, and he's remarried, and I have to honor that. I'm not one of these like exes that loiters in the background. So I've literally just let it go. I did send him a copy of my book, and I wish him well. If he wants to reach out to me, he knows he's welcome to. But yeah, I don't want to create any turbulent, weird. Because you know what's really strange about that? Now, this is not my husband's behavior, okay? We lived together before we got married for a couple of years. He immediately got remarried, like within months after I was on Maui. That is not him. Wow. All right? That is not his behavior. That is not his behavior. I don't care. And I think he was traumatized, and he was just looking for someone who was there. And what's interesting is, since this was orchestrated, I'm always wondering what the plants were. In other words, is this new lady a plant? Was she there to do damage control or to be part of the plant? I'm very suspicious now of anybody who just shows up to be someone to take care of somebody else during a crisis. I'm so untrustworthy now. It's not even funny. But, I let it go. It bothers me, though, because he was one of my soulmates. I mean, he was definitely, I love him. I wish him best. But it's never, the thing is, it's like I'm a ghost. He doesn't know. It's like I was murdered and taken away, and he doesn't have a clue. It's horrible. It's really weird.
You can, without creating any harm, just from ahimsa, just say, would you listen to me as I open my heart? I'd like to talk about some things that I've been thinking and hear what you've been thinking. Just that simple like that. Doesn't mean anything in terms of implication, but you just understanding.
Yeah, you can just talk to us soul, just talking soul.
Right. Well, I can do that
soul
at
to
the soul
soul.
spirit level, and I don't have a problem with that. There's definitely there's nothing there animosity oriented at all. We had a perfect life together. I mean, we never fought. I mean, we always got along so well. It's not even funny. So he was my partner. You know, he was my training partner. He was my surveying partner.
Yeah.
He was basically the other side to me to some degree. So it's really weird.
What about the daughter? Have you made amends with her?
You know, well, she always wrote to me, and I'd write her back. You know, she's doing her own thing. She's in college now, so I missed out about 11 years of her life, which I raised her since she's my stepdaughter. So I raised her since she was 4 years old. She was my kid, in my opinion, because I raised her even though she was my blood. So yeah, I really loved her. What's that?
Oh. That's so sad.
It is sad. It's horrible. It's traumatic. And the thing is, these people don't seem to understand that it wasn't just me that was affected. It was my stepdaughter. It was my family. It was the people around me. It was my clients. It was my kickboxing students. It was everything. It was my life that they went. It's just unbelievable, but they don't seem to care. It's like they have a right to do these things. They don't. So that's my point. You know, my point is that, yes, I'm fearless and I'm not afraid to engage in whatever, but I certainly didn't give a heads up. You know, just because I'm not afraid in my own home of an intruder, whether it's technological or whatever. So I think it was very out of line for these guys to do what they did. They should be ashamed of themselves, and they're never going to come clean, as far as I can tell. Somebody would have to put an awful lot of pressure on them. So what's your life like now? Have you been able to rebuild or not really? I mean, I rebuild. I just live. I mean, I try to do the best I can each day. I have my furry animals to keep me company. I've been in and out of, like, I wouldn't call them relationships. I just, you know, I've had my share of weird time with whatever on Maui and this and that. But I kind of just am at my point now in my life where I'm just kind of observing things and looking at everything around me. The dust is settling and I'm processing data. And the one thing that I've noticed is that, and I've kind of mentioned this to Misha, I'm sure you know Misha, but I talked a little bit about, I was talking a little bit about some of the things that creep up in my psyche that I'm not sure if they're screen memories or what, and I just have to let them go. But the concept is that there's stuff that I'm weeding through right now. Because of the interface with the technology, I've got to look and analyze everything that was deployed onto me. I've got to look at not only the signals, but what kind of transmission they were using insofar as, and also some of the data that they were throwing at me and why. So I'm just doing a lot of processing, but I'm still writing, and I do readings for people, and I'm interactive, and I have my own circle of people I talk to here in town and this and that, but it's not the same, you know. My point is that it's not the same anymore. And, you know, I get out there on the radio and I do my thing, and that's fine too. But I was never slated to do radio. I mean, I just do it because I don't know why. I think Lorian got me involved in it. You know, I just felt like I needed to have a voice because my voice was getting swept away, and I'm a chatter. I mean, obviously you can tell I talk, so I don't have a problem with, you know, not talking.
With someone as open as you, Solaris, I know that going over something that you thought you've gone over before, but letting things in the background have a telepathic communication with you, the background, what's on the wall, what's on the floor. There's more that'll open up every time you go. There's unveiling, so that just let it keep opening for you.
Mm-hmm. That's good advice. I appreciate that. You know what I like about both of you is you're very loving people. And I needed that tonight, so I want to thank you for just being that. And maybe I don't know. Maybe hopefully we'll be able to connect someday in person. And I don't know. You do sessions, right? You guys do that?
Yeah, we do sessions. Yeah. We're coming to Lorian's conference in March.
Wonderful.
And I don't know if you're going to be there. And then
where's that going to be, in Vegas?
Contact in the desert.
Oh,
no, she's got one in
Santa Clara, California.
No, San Francisco Airport South. What's that? I'll pull it up. Yeah, so we'll be there, and we'll be at Contact in the Desert. So come on.
Nice. Well, one way or another, I'll try to connect with you. Definitely. And I mean, I may be back on Maui to visit anyways, because I've been feeling an itch to be on the ocean or around the ocean. So.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, if you're coming here, let us know. Yeah,
I will. Yeah. Because you know what it is? I think that we're all here for reasons, but beings like you are here too to help beings like me, who get hit with weirdness like that, you know, because we're a spiritual support system, and we can't go to regular people for this. I mean, you can't go out there and just dial into somebody generic. You've got to talk to people who are kind of star people, or people who've done the work, or who understand consciousness, and also understand the deeper side and the darker side to technology and some mind control programs, because it really does boil down to a lot of that.
Yeah. Most people don't get us.
When you scratch these, when you go back on, scratch a little, go a little deeper. We're talking about people that engage in murderous, terrible acts, and that any human being would be horrified at what they're really up to, and it's scary, and people don't want to hear us.
Mm-hmm. It's very true.
Right.
And you know what's interesting? I think it's because we're star beings. And I say star people, it's because we have a higher level of consciousness and merged with what I call creator source. We come from a benchmark that doesn't do stuff like that. I mean, if we have to preserve our lives in self-defense, that's one thing. But to go and harm somebody just for the sake of hurting them or because you can or you have an access to, that's foolish. I don't subscribe to it. I really don't. And I even said I would never work for agencies like that. You couldn't get me to brain hack somebody remotely to torture them 24 hours a day or whatever. That's just not right. So, yeah, it's about ethics. It really is. And I think that has to be addressed on a global scale. And I think that's also kind of like the underlying problem we're having here in this world. People are being programmed discreetly, and nobody knows what's going on with them. And then they get triggered. So.
Yeah.
We have a roommate here.
From all the things that we've gotten from Moody and Ring and others, one of the first things that happens to you after you die from this earth walk is you feel all the pain you've inflicted on other people. And that's part of your karma, and you don't have to wait for it. It's the first thing that happens. You get what you gave. And so all you poor soldiers who have been doing these horrible things for my labs, you got to get it off it, because you're hurting yourself every time you hurt somebody else.
I agree with that, too. I think there's a universal law of that. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, we had a roommate that lived here in 2011 for like 9 months, and she kept talking about this, and I didn't understand it in those days. And she said it was DARPA, and she said they were all, she was recording it. Anyway, after 9 months of being here, she took her own life. She couldn't take it. They were just constantly in her head.
Yeah.
And
that's the idea.
And she killed herself when Andy Bishaga was here as he was leaving. She richly killed herself and watched him. He said he turned around, he saw her out of the window. And then we realized that must have been when she was overdosing. And then an hour or two later, I found her. It was horrible. And they were doing that right here in Maui on my property. And I didn't have any clue on what to do. I mean, there's no resources. So I really appreciate you getting this out. And I'm going to look at your YouTubes, and if there's some way we can be a support system. I know Misha Johnston does these 3 or 4 times a week. She does these support groups online for free. She'll put in 2, 3, 4 hours every 2 or 3 days just reaching out to people. It's horrendous. And so
that's the insidious piece that nobody wants to talk about. And let me tell you something, that is something with an agenda, because not only can they create monarchs, Manchurians, and also what they call, what you described as a forced suicide. I had somebody that was a quote-unquote cloned, Montauk. He was cloned from Montauk. He wasn't there, but he was used insofar as an interconnection template. They used a heterodyne program onto him, in which basically, he was a cloned Montauk boy. And he, a week before he died, and I mentioned this before on the air on other shows, but he told me, he said, they're telling me they're giving me a Luciferian execution. And I said, no. I said, just tell them to F off and ignore it. I kept trying to support him, and say, it's okay, just kick it out. A week later, he was dead. For suicide. There was never an autopsy. This is somebody who was programmed with technology. He was an Apple computer programmer who was very high up and worked and had made a lot of money. And I don't know who he pissed off. I don't. But I also know he was a very kind of spiritual person. He did meet with Preston Nichols, and I think that was a problem down that corridor. And he knew actually Al Bielek too, from what I understand. So he's just one. He's just one that I know was taken out by the program. Now, this was somebody who wanted to live, didn't want to die, didn't have a mental illness, but was made to look crazy because of the technology. And this is happening more and more and more. And people need to be aware. Absolutely.
Yes, my goodness.
It's terrible. And when you can't do anything for these people, I'm strong enough to know technological feeds, and I ignored them. And I would back them up. But most people wouldn't know that. And some people who are not true psychic-oriented beings would probably get completely overwhelmed by technological feed like that, or even a visual, right? They wouldn't know. So.
Yeah. Well, that's why you're an inspiration, and you have a key, because you've been able to survive this, and, while your life has changed, you still have a life. You're still living. You're still functioning.
I'm still alive. Yeah, I keep telling everybody I live another day, but I have had strange stuff. Like I said, they ramped up the signals about 3 years ago after Pert retired for whatever reason. The correlation is that. And I'm not sure what that's about, but there are some things that I deal with. I did have radiation toxicity at one point, and they couldn't figure out what that was. And the special forces guy actually told me, he said, well, it's radiation toxicity, and this is what you need to do. And, you don't get radiation toxicity unless you're exposed to something like major, right? So I had some weird stuff happening. I've had stuff on my bioelectric field in my physical body. I think I'm pretty good in strength, but I still get hit. I still have stuff like cartilage issues and things like that. It's bone structure, basically. It's the body. The body's taking a hit.
The body's taking a hit. So I wanted to continue with your books. You wrote in October 5th, 2010.
Let me just wait.
Okay, you asked a question. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Really?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I just want to go back to when you have an implant. When you have a feeling that it's in a specific area, if you send a little you inside to that area, you can establish a dialogue with the consciousness in that implant itself, and it's really amazing how that may help you. I just want you to know that.
I have never heard that, and I will use that, and I want to thank you for giving me that information. It's the first time I've ever heard that after all these years, so thank you.
Where do you have an implant?
I have them. They're around, first of all, they're around my crown, my entire crown. They're almost like a headset to some degree. I've got them in the back of my head, where your dream chakra is. I don't know if you're familiar with that. So the back of the neck, and also around the chest cavity, which is on the left side towards the chest. Those are the major ones. And I think I have some other ones around that aren't as big, that don't signal as strong. The biggest ones were the one in the back of the neck is where they really, really access. And then the one by my chest cavity, which was very concerning. And I remember them putting that in through the satellite-driven technology. I actually remember the pressure, and it did not feel good at all. It was very uncomfortable when they did that.
Wow.
Each of them have a voice. They'll tell you what they do and what their job is, and you can actually converse with them.
Okay.
When you send your avatar within. And
I'm going to do that.
If they will let you, ask if it's okay with you touch them with the light in the hand and the fingers of your avatar that you send inside. And we'll receive some light and love from you.
Okay. That's really nice. I wish I had heard this 15 years ago.
Yeah. Would it be okay, Sasha, to turn them off or to neutralize them? Or can you dialogue to find out what would happen if you... Because I have implants, too. And I've had third parties, they'll say, you've got one here, one there, and then I knew that's where they were. But I symbol them as having been, given to me by the extraterrestrials who are protecting me. But who knows? There's all these stories that
go
you
can, actually.
Yeah,
you do have the what they call the etheric implants can be used as stabilizers to help calibrate for light body levels, and that is true. One thing I can tell you is I went to a woman back in the 90s when I had implants that were etheric, and she did an etheric crystal removal on me, and let me tell you something, as soon as she did that on me, she removed this huge thing off my head that time, and then she did something and she peeled away like this layer off my eyes, and she said whatever they were, she said they didn't want you being that psychic and that powerful. She said then that's why when she took that off of me, man, it was like a beam of light hit me from my crown out to my feet. I felt reborn. So that was just etheric, that was just energy. So whatever else, it's amazing. It's really amazing.
Yeah. One of the things you can say is you can say to the consciousness in the implant, I would like to speak directly to the consciousness that you march with, that is your superiors and your coordinates, so that I can talk to your whole network and see if what your mission is with me and what your interest is in me.
Okay. This is very good advice. Can I call you guys sometime?
Yes.
Sure.
Excellent. Please.
All right.
Feel free
I
to
love
call
this
us.
information.
Yes.
You know what? Sometimes I need a reminder because I know I did send light to a lot of areas, but I didn't think about anything that you're saying right now. So it's very good information because they are like little bots. They're like little intelligent programs right now. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yes. Yeah.
Information.
I want to make sure we cover all your books. Anything else?
Okay.
We're running out of time.
Well, that's okay. I just have
the hour.
Okay, yeah, it's been going by fast.
We have a little bit of time, about 10 minutes. Yeah.
Right.
But go ahead. What do you want to cover? Go ahead.
No, I just have Program by Deception, which is a sequel to the Eye of the Remote Black Operations in Aries Bound 52. And that is pretty much talking about different things happening here on the timelines. I actually wrote this around 2012, so there was a lot going on with the fall of mankind, what I called the fall of mankind and the cause, censoring the psyche and psychotronic design, stalking the self. In other words, how we have to stalk ourselves and check ourselves for intrusion, whether it's coming from a parallel dimension or entity or technology. And people need to learn to do that. I'm sure you all probably know how to do that by now, but it's very important. And then, of course, I write about Into the Void, the Event Horizon, Ascension of 2012, which I believe people say that didn't happen, but we did go through a shift in consciousness. It's just that people didn't go off planet, so to speak, the way they realized or they wanted to, but it's still, the ascension is still in motion and frequency, in my opinion, anyway. I do talk about celestial. Yeah. So
I agree totally.
Yeah.
I felt it.
Yeah.
Even, and I remember actually feeling like the ground was moving that day. Like it wasn't like an earthquake or anything, but I could feel energy moving. So there was definitely something going on that day. But I talk about celestial races and star nations and telemetric brain manipulation. A lot of different things in here that basically transcends the first book, which is the Eye of the Remote series, and talks more about the technology and how things are incorporating on the timeline and what's really happening with this technological bleed through. Because it's like opening a Pandora's box. When people puncture or use technology to open us up, they get hitchers. You know, we get, not only do we get the technological feeds, but we get potentially other entities or other things trying to attach onto that signal. The same thing they use with nuclear wars. You know, they try to punch a hole through dimensional spaces like a membrane. They're going to get other things coming through. So I see it the same way because we're multidimensional, existing simultaneously. And I kind of touch on that in my book. So that's the Program by Deception book, Eye of the Remote Series 2.
Wow. And then you have 1 million miles till midnight between the mirror and the lens.
Yeah, that's the sci-fi spinoff. I wrote it as a sci-fi, but it's really about me. It's actually really about the communication system interface and the way I felt and the technology that I know. It's about this planet and the illusion of getting completely morphed into what we call a station. In other words, it doesn't become it's not a planet anymore. It's morphing into what they call stations through artificial intelligence. And the whole idea behind this is to interconnect all planets into a station so that they can become a hybrid of what they used to be. And so I talk about this because I believe that's the agenda behind the scenery here. I believe that's really their end game, is really to transhumanize not only ourselves, but the entire world and our galaxies. And I don't think they're going to get very far because we have a lot of beings out there that don't want that.
Right. Don't we have allies?
I know we do.
Here?
You know, I don't.
Well, tell us about what you know about the allies. I like to end on a more positive note.
Oh, that's okay. No, I agree.
Who loves us?
Well, I would say, in my opinion, it's beyond the galactic center. In other words, home beyond home for me is beyond the galactic center. I've always called them celestials. In other words, they're light beings. They might be angelic to some people, but they're the celestial races. They're light beings, but they also can change their design work and change and shapeshift. What I do know is that when I first got pulled into that program, I asked for so much help, and I summoned so many ships of light. I'm amazed if we're not surrounded. I mean, to some degree, I believe that we are. I believe that we are divinely protected through this dark tide. But I also believe that people need to snap out of the program and stop getting dreamt. You know, they're dreaming. They're in the state of stasis where they're in this dream, and they've got to snap out of it. And I think some people are starting to get out of it, and they're groggy, but they're not understanding, and they're getting confused and angry. And then beings like us who are already switched on, I think we kind of help them get out of that tide pool. But it's definitely, from what I've seen, there's divine forces with us always because we are the divine force. You know, sometimes people are looking for the help beyond it all, but we are here. We are here. That's us. We are the extraterrestrials. They are us, and we are them. So we're an aspect of them. I've always said we exist simultaneously. We're multidimensional beings existing simultaneously beyond the illusion of space and time, and we are. We don't come from here. We incarnate here. That's all. We're just incarnating here, but we go back to the stars. So I think that that benchmark needs to be reestablished here on this world in order for everybody to get along again. We have to understand that the point of light lies within, and that once we start transcending all the technology and all these programs and removing this yoke of illusion, then we can go home. But, you know, we're already there in consciousness anyway. It's just a matter of getting us home. But one thing I will say, that technology is designed to divert people's course. And if it stays in control, it will continue to do what it thinks it's supposed to do because it's only as good as its programmers, and we didn't program it. So mankind's underground programmed a lot of it. I'll tell you that much.
So who are these people underground?
Well, the military-industrial complex, a spin-off, I would say covert intelligence areas connected to spin-off agencies that are alphabet. Some of the guys, and there's not one alphabet agency out there that doesn't have a piece to this covert technology interface and technology. So you're dealing with all different aspects of government agencies who do have access to some degree. Although I was communicated to that this is very, very black. In other words, people in D.C. are only starting to understand it, only because beings like us are talking about it and putting the work out there in truth media. Otherwise, they wouldn't really have a clue, because the generals aren't going to tell them anything that goes beyond. They're just not. It's just they're not going to tell them. And it's only people like us who stand up and talk about these things. So it's more about the what I call the Black Space Program, Black Science Departments, and beyond the military-industrial complex and all the ancient artifacts and all these devices they've had and they've confiscated for a very, very long time that they reverse engineered. So that's what I see anyway.
Right. So, but aren't they too of the light? Aren't they of higher awareness? And isn't there a way for them to wake up and remember who they are and discover the real reason why they decided to incarnate in the 3D physicality?
I think so. I think there's always hope, I'd like to believe that there's always hope. I would say that even like we were talking initially when I was pulled into that program, I was so much love and light to these people. I wasn't a groupie or a fan, but I was sending them genuine love and genuine compassion. And I do believe that there's good in everybody deep down somewhere, but I can't imagine people doing this for a living, because I think after a while, when you get indoctrinated into this program, it takes so much over the soul spirit. You have to have a very strong soul and spirit to not evacuate when you get taken over with these technologies. My soul did not evacuate. My spirit held on, and my divine force held on, but most people I don't think would. And I think that's what part of it is. So we have to stay anchored in that light. And I do believe that there are glimpses of goodness in all people, but what are we supposed to do? Re-educate them, hit them with another transmission of signal? I've talked to people who are colonels who've told me about black satellites, who've literally said, we would like to use a signal that creates an alpha space that just literally zaps everybody simultaneously and they all get along. But is that mind control then? Because you're using a signal to make them behave? I don't know. So you have to ask that question.
Solaris, one thing that what I get is that being with like-minded people who understand what you're saying, who can empathize with you, and being able to, especially to be able to have a regular face-to-face meeting with such kindred spirits helps immensely.
I agree. Totally agree. And hugging, genuine hugs, genuine affection. I know people are kind of standoffish these days. I used to hug people all the time. And then I got kind of standoffish. But I really believe in that. I believe that people need to be loving to each other unconditionally and just be kind to each other. That includes animals. Yeah, that's huge. And also being around the right resonance wave, which I call the right people who resonate at your frequency. And it doesn't mean you have to be a certain religion or a race or a color. It's consciousness. This is such a simple equation. Right. And yet you see all this division going on. And I'm like, why? Can't everybody, I don't care what you worship, and you shouldn't care what I am. We all get along through consciousness. We all go back to the same source. So I always say, all rivers lead to the same ocean. That's very true. But you have to stand up. You have to transcend that. So.
Well, that's what our power is, though. Mm-hmm. We may not be able to do anything about the politics or anything else that's going on, but we can reach out and genuinely hug each other and have a real conversation. It's so hard sometimes. Like, what can I do? But that personal one-on-one part is what you can do.
Right, and being kind is also
being kind.
It's also the osmosis effect, too, because your vibration, if it's high and peaceful and happy, will be an osmosis effect to people around you. It's like when you smile at somebody, it's hard for people not to smile back because it's a chain reaction usually, unless people are extremely grumpy or something. But, yeah, I agree. And I think people need to get back to that benchmark and stop looking down at their cell phones and start looking up and around and paying attention and being kind and just waking up.
Well, that's one of the reasons I get up and get on a plane and go meet people. Mm-hmm. You get to look at each other. You get to let's go have a cup of tea, or share lunch. Let's do something.
I like
get
that
to know
too.
each other.
Because I tell you what, I don't know about you, but the virtual field is not. I don't know what people see in it. Quite honestly, real people you can't replace. It's just like loved ones. You can't replace them. You can be in touch with the spirit world, but that's one thing. But physical bodies, physical matrices. My mother's gone. I can't hug her anymore, and a picture doesn't cut it. So this is what I mean by people. Don't waste your time looking at inanimate objects, and get in touch with each other, your families, ancestors, people, and what you were saying, really learn how to communicate again. I think that's the biggest key.
Right. So you're not powerless. Get out there and meet people.
Do it. Exactly.
And, like you said, take your head. And I think when we get together with common interests, we create a cohesive field.
Mm-hmm. We
do.
Yeah.
Maybe do yoga, or you were doing these group sports.
Yeah,
I was doing sports.
Yeah. And actually, yoga's really good. Qigong, I taught Qigong classes, and that was one of my biggest classes besides the mixed martial arts. Everybody loved Qigong, Tai Chi class. So, it's about connecting, and also that unified energy that connects in. So, it's perfect.
Do you do that where you live now? Are you still in Colorado?
I'm not teaching right now. I'm still in Colorado. I still do martial arts. I just don't teach right now. It's not saying I won't, but my heart really wasn't into teaching after all this happened. I used to teach with my husband. We had our own classes and we had our own company. That was, we did our own kickboxing thing. And so it's kind of a bummer. I just don't know. It's really hard to go back. I just keep going forward, but I still train. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, we have about 8 minutes. Sasha, you have a question or feedback or comment?
I feel really inspired by you, Solaris. You're just a great warrior person. I'd say peaceer rather than a warrior.
Well, thank you. And likewise, I feel really good with both of you, too, and I hope to interview both of you on my show sometime. I would love to have both of you on. So think about that. And also,
come on.
Yeah, and also I'd like to stay in touch with you, too, because I know that you're a key part to this evolution and consciousness, and you understand. So we're all working together. Like I said, we're always walking each other home to the stars. That's the motto. So.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, have you encountered other extraterrestrial species?
I've had visions in the past, and I kind of touched on Misha with this. If you look at my Transmutation Through Ascension book, that's the first book I ever wrote. That's a species I've actually seen when I was. And I can't really, I was under, but I did have this thing communicate with me. So I consider it kind of an Nocturian, but some people might see it as something else. But I've only seen things like that here and there, and very short glimpses, and nothing major. But I have had a point where I was doing the Goddess Ascending newsletter where I was I call it kind of a multidimensional, multiversal translator, because I was just streaming data from the Phallic Akashic, and however that comes in, whatever species, I consider them to be the light beings and the celestials, and that's how I identify them as big light beings. Like they're just big and they're full of light, more than archangels, but that's what I see. So that's what I've been connected to all my life. And then when I got pulled into that program, it was very dark. It was more insidious.
Wow, so you got disconnected. So you have a DVD documentary called I Am the Remote, a Disclosure of Covert Technology.
Right.
I don't have that on the site here. Tell us about your DVD.
Well, the DVD is just a documentation of what happened to me in 2004. The parties involved, the band, and then, of course, the implant analysis scan that was done by Steve Colburn, which is in the documentary. And that's pretty much just an update. I have talked to my editor about that, and we're going to upload it onto probably just something like Vimeo so people can donate and just watch it at this point. It is available for DVD purchase on my website, Night Shadow Anomaly Detectives, if they want to buy it there. But I am looking at a sequel to that at some point in the continuum, just to let people know what's going on in the deeper levels of maybe doing more scans and more beyond implant analysis, just more analysis, so people can see more technology.
This Steve Colbert, he's the fellow that looks at your implants in your body or something?
Yeah, he's the one that actually did my implant analysis scan. He worked with the late Dr. Roger Lear, and he's starting to get a lot of traction right now with his implant analysis scan. People are asking him more and more to be. I think he's going to be speaking at some of the conferences you're going to be at, or at least be out there. So, yeah, he's definitely a scientist, and he's very credible. And yeah, I wasn't really surprised to see this stuff. I knew it was going to happen, but it was interesting to watch the technology. It was interesting to watch the signals and what he was able to do in that. And the fact that the cameras kept going off, which I thought was very interesting. So, and that's the 45-minute raw video footage I haven't uploaded yet. So.
Oh, that would be great to see.
Yeah. I'm gonna do that.
Let's see. So your website is called Night Shadow Anomaly Detectives.
Right, and then I do have a Solaris BlueRaven website as well, but usually they go over to Night Shadow Anomaly Detectives if they need to contact me.
Uh-huh. And what does that mean, Night Shadow Anomaly Detectives?
It's basically, I did a children's book, Mr. Son of the Halloween Ball. We didn't really touch on it, but it was, there's a character in the book called Star Night Shadow, and she's this witchy poo that she's a good witch, but that's Night Shadow is that. It's Night Shadow anomaly, which means I look into anomalies and research and investigate anomalies because I can't really confirm what some of these things are, so I just consider them to be anomaly detectives, and that's the group that I am and that I'm affiliated with that literally goes in and we do, whatever. If people want to reach out to us, whether it's a reading or just somebody, needs an analysis and they've had something similar like what happened to me and they want to talk to me, then they can reach out to me.
Oh, okay. Like I grew up in a haunted house. Would you be able to? Well, the whole thing was crazy, and my sister still owns it. It was really. There's definitely something going on in that house. Yeah. Anyway, so if I were to have you come to Pennsylvania and go through my house,
I'd happy to scan it on there. Absolutely, yeah, I could. Yeah, happy to do that. I can hone in on that. It seemed like a lot of the ghosts were held there by my mother. And then when she died, I went back there astrally, and it seemed to be cleared out. And then we went back there physically, and it seemed to be cleared out. But it was like a major portal. Or does that happen sometimes? Right, major portals. It does. Yeah, if they transfer out in the house itself, they're going to leave a portal, a death portal. Literally a death portal, because that's where things can come in and out. So when people have people that transfer out in their homes, you need to make sure you secure that and heal it and transmute it with a violet ray or whatever you need to do to seal that portal. You don't want it open because it's going to leave it to a point where other things can come in and out. So I always tell people that, but yeah, definitely. Wonderful. Okay, we're going to be going off in a few minutes here. Go ahead. I'm trying to control a crazy cat that's running across my keyboard. I have to thank you really quick. I want to thank both of you, and I know we lost Kevin there, but I want to thank you so much. It's been such a wonderful conversation with both of you. Thank you for all your beautiful energy. I really appreciate it. Oh, thank you. And you interviewed with Kevin before? You seem to know each other. I've interviewed Kevin, and he's interviewed me. So, yes, I'm familiar with him. Yeah. Oh, wonderful. Yeah, well, we'll have to share dates about when we can come on. There was one more question I had. I'm sorry, I had to protect my keyboard. Oh, your next book. My next book is in the works. I haven't really, I don't have a title for it per se, but I am working on one that's based on the technology and another one that's in addition to my children's book. So I've got kind of a lot of different things on the burners. And then I am looking at an alchemical book as well with mystery school teaching. So I've got like different things on the back burner and all between. Well, I so admire you that you're such a prolific writer. Thank you. I try. I'm surprised. I'm actually grateful I still have a brain. Well, you have a very intelligent brain, and we've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. So, thank you. And that is the end of the show. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Thank Solaris, you. Sasha, Kevin. Mahalo. Thank you. Aloha. Aloha.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message. Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Any commercial advertising you may hear in this program is of the sole discretion and benefit of the host of whose program you are listening to. Revolution Radio does not endorse any commercial products, nor does it accept monetary compensation for on-air advertising of commercial products, nor will it ever. We are and shall remain 100% listener supported. Any product advertising on this program are considered used at higher risk, and Revolution Radio shall not be held liable for any claims or damages received from any product advertised within this program. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Oscar's freeze. That's your cerebral cortex looking for an answer it doesn't have.
See? Even your brain knows you're screwed.
The body's filling with adrenaline right now, whether you know it or not. Your heart's beating fast. It's getting a little harder to breathe.
is not real. The only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It is a product of our imagination, causing us to fear things that do not at present and may not ever exist. That is near insanity. Do not misunderstand me. Danger is very real, but fear is a choice. We are all telling ourselves a story.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. 100% listener-supported radio. Reporting